I mean, it sounds like you're describing let it go, surrender
Yeah.
and trust. It's like you've got to surrender and give it all to God in a way, because there's so many things, especially today in our world, that we can very well get stressed and anxious about and fearful. There's so many worldly things that are going on. There's so many things going on in our church that will invoke an enormous amount of fear and just bewilderment and just wonder, like, what's going on? So I think, to our discussion, trust is just like surrender. I try to surrender every day and say, Lord, just carry me, and I have to trust that, trust in Jesus,
That's the key. And you know what? And I'm glad you mentioned trust, because trust isn't a feeling. Trust is a decision. And so many times each day, that prayer at the bottom of the Divine Mercy image, I love that prayer. Jesus, I trust in you. Jesus, I'm scared to death. Everything looks hopeless. This is a disaster. It seems to be useless. Why am I doing this? I don't know. I'm afraid. But Jesus, I'm going to choose to trust in you.
Yeah.
And I do it every day too, multiple times each day, right? Whether I feel it or not. And you know what I find? If you do that, if you keep doing that, and you combine that with the grace we can receive in the sacraments, and you have a relationship, a real relationship with the Lord, right? Over time, it gets easier. And I find that I am afraid less than I used to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. But like you said earlier, it's a process. And it takes time.
Yeah. Well, like you said, over time. And I think what people forget is that it's the virtue of patience. They feel that they're taking a pill and now tomorrow they're going to be fine. And it's not really like that with faith. No. Faith is a compound of experiences in the sacraments building, even to the point where you said, like, sometimes you don't feel anything, but it's that it's the seeds of grace that compound in us that eventually, before you know it, you're turning around and says, oh no, I feel different today. It's because you had gone to Mass and received the sacraments, all that time. And that happened to me, that happened to me over time, and I think it's important to share that with our listeners and viewers, that it doesn't happen overnight. Right. And it is a virtue. It's like, it's like an athlete training. I mean, we are developing our spiritual and faith muscle, right, Gary?
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things I like to do when I speak about this or when I write about this is be honest. Because I have heard a lot of well-intentioned preachers and writers who say, well, all you do is pray and you're going to feel better. Not always. No. It sometimes takes time. And the Lord knows that, because he knows us. He knows slackers like me, who, if all I needed to do was pray and I felt better instantly, then I'd probably forget about him a little bit. He knows that. And I'm so glad he understands that. But over time, you do feel a sense of peace, even though I like to say sometimes you might have peace of mind, but you don't have peace of stomach. So my stomach might still have the butterflies, but in my mind, I know, wait a minute, God's bigger than this.
Right.
He's allowing this to happen for a reason. He's in control. I don't feel it always, but I know it. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of faith. And then there are those times, like you said, where externally nothing seems to change. You wake up one day and you say, wait a minute, why am I not afraid? Why am I feeling better? Because that's my realization that the Lord is in control.
Yeah.
So, I always like to say, you invite him into your storm, things will always get better, not always externally, but at least internally. Sometimes he calms the storm, sometimes he calms the sailor. And I really have found that to be the case.